This evening, I'm joined by a Swedish coach with the name of Dali, currently in Gibraltar. Well, now actually in Spain, but currently the manager of Gibraltar team Europa Point FC. Dali, I welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me at your show. And hopefully, everybody will understand my English. I will try my best. Huh?
Well, your English is absolutely perfect. We spoke on before on a call, and it sounded absolutely perfect to me. But let's start off then. You're half Serbian, half Swedish, but you grew up in Sweden. What was that time like?
Well, actually, I'm 100% Serbian because
Okay.
my parents are from Serbia, but I'm born and raised in Sweden. So I identify myself, maybe as you said, 50-50, but I'm feel a little bit stronger for the Serbian roots, of course.
So then, growing up, was it your parents that got you into it? Was it yourself, just the love for the sport?
Well, since I was 5 years old, I started to play football with my friends, and I really fell in love with it. And actually, I was quite good as a young player, as a youth player, and I tried my best to go into professional football in Sweden. But in the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000th century, there was no money in professional football in Sweden. So when I was growing up and I wanted to move away from my parents and start my own life, I had to choose like continue to live at home and try as a professional or get a normal job so I can buy myself my own apartment and move away from my parents. And I chose the last one, like growing up and move away. But at that time, I also found out I'm not going to be a professional football player at a really really high level. So I started coaching, and I was like 23 years old, 24 years old when I started my coaching career.
In Sweden, because we'll talk about England. England, if you want to be a professional footballer, it's possible, but it's quite impossible at the same time. 1% of academy players get in. I'm not even sure about the percentage if you'll be able to even get into academies in the first place. But in Sweden, you mentioned that your time growing up, there wasn't a lot of money in Sweden at that time for footballers and around the world. But was there any sort of leveling class between the two countries where it would have been easier for you to go pro in Sweden? Had you been born in England, it would have been near impossible.
Phew, tough question. I don't know. The football has changed a lot also since I played football in the 90s. The way I played football would more suited for the football today, like controlling the ball, controlling the time and space with the ball, using your technique and creating overloads and using your versus one skills. The football in Sweden when I was growing up was not like that. So I was not appreciated as a football player because it was mainly kick and run football and duels and strong. Like it was influenced a lot from English British football during the 90s in Sweden. So I think that was one of the reasons I didn't reach top football in Sweden. I should have got abroad, but at the same time, it's very hard to go abroad in the 90s. There was no telephones, there was no internet, there was no communicating with your family. I will tell you a little bit about that later on when you ask me about my time at Crystal Palace.
So you mentioned there was no phones, no technology, and a lot of the people that I speak to had that they had no phones, where all they were doing is playing football.
Yeah.
For you, were you just outside playing football all the time growing up?
Yeah, of course. All the time we had, the spare time we had outside the school was being on the football pitch, and you played until the dark came, or your mother came to the football field and told you like time to eat, and you rush home and eat, and then you went out again and played football. But all my life is based with my friends on the football pitch, and we spend a lot of time there growing up and fell in love with the football, of course.
So when you see the youngsters of today and you're strolling by a park or whatever you may be doing and you see them on their phones or you see them with headphones on or stuff that you didn't have access to when you were growing up, do you feel a sense of disappointment to see how the generations have slipped away?
Yeah, I think they can use their time spending it on the football field together, or spending it in the parks, or climbing on the trees and get like used to the body strength and use your brain to solve problems with the things that appear in front of you and with your friends. I think I lost many young players are wasting their times in front of the the easy things like computers and video games, I can understand it. I love playing a football manager myself, but I think if they invest in the time outside to progress as a football player and individual skills, I think they will reach much faster and much longer by themselves.
You mentioned the game Football Manager, and it's something that my friends keep nagging me, and we're doing an online save, so they keep wanting me to come on and join them on the save. Is it realistic to your job in management? I mean, we'll talk about how experienced you are later on, but is it a real representation?
No,
No way.
I will not say it's realistic. I mean, I played Football Manager since I think it's 93, 94. I think it was called Championship Manager at that time, and then they changed the name like later in the 90s, beginning of the 2000. And you can take a crappy team and you can win Champions League after 5 years. I don't think it's realistic. But it's fun. It's good time wasting, and I enjoy it, of course, but it's not realistic at all.
But why is it not realistic? Because now you're trying to tell me that me winning the Champions League with Dortmund isn't anything that's acceptable in society. So how come that's not? What's the difference then? What is the big difference between the two?
The difference is you don't talk to live people. You don't have these problems like the daily communication with a real person and all the problems and all the solutions and all the things that can happen during the week or during the games. Football management is more about man to man talking and coaching and get everybody on the same page to doing the best thing for the team to win the games. And Football Manager is like clicking and it's not realistic. It's fun, but it's not realistic at all.
Right. So the two biggest academies in Sweden, you had eyes for them. They had eyes for you as well. You managed to go to, as I told you before, I'm not going to try and pronounce them, but there's one beginning with B and ends with an A that you went to for a few years or even a few months. Tell us about that time over in the biggest academy in Sweden.
So I didn't hear what club you were talking about.
It's okay. Let me try and pronounce it. It's called Bromma Pojkarna.
Yeah, Brommapojkarna. Brommapojkarna is the best academy by far in Sweden, and probably the best academy in the whole Scandinavia. During the 10, 15, 20, 25 years, they have most players coming out from that academy going pro football, playing for the national team of Sweden. And I was the head coach for under 21 and under 19 for 4 years. And I also coached the first team in the top tier in Allsvenskan in Sweden, my last season as a coach in Brommapojkarna. But that academy is by far producing the most players internationally from any club in Scandinavia. I can tell you some of the players, if you're interested, that I had
Go ahead.
or was there before me. Like Dejan Kulusevski that plays in Tottenham is one of the players I coached in Brommapojkarna. And of course, he went from Brommapojkarna to Italy, to Atalanta, and then he moved on to Juventus and then to Tottenham. We also have the best striker in Europe that I coached for 2.5 years right now. He plays for Sporting Lisbon. That's Victor Gyökeres. We sold him from Brommapojkarna to, I think it was to Brighton. And then he went to Swansea and then Coventry. And now he's the top scorer in Sporting Lisbon. We had Joseph Colley, who was the best under-19 player in Brommapojkarna. Chelsea signed him, and he was the captain for the Chelsea under-21 and under-19 when they won the Youth Champions League. Joel Asoro, that played in Sunderland. If you have watched this Netflix documentary, Sunderland Until I Die, you can see him in the first season of the Netflix documentary. So many players. I think today in the national team of Sweden, the starting 11, 7 of those players played in Brommapojkarna under my wings. Actually, Hjalmar Ekdal, who plays for Burnley, under Vincent Kompany also, he played in my team.
We're going to go into the management side later, and we would have spoken about Kulusevski and Gyökeres, who's also linked with Musta, like Arsenal and all these big clubs.
Yeah.
We're going to mention that later on. So your time spent in this academy as a player, what sort of access did you have? How would you compare it to another facility in Sweden compared to this big youth academy?
Well, the facilities that Brommapoikana has is okay, but it's not top notch. It is one indoor hall. We have it during the winters that we can use. We have actually one stadium where we play the games, and then you have an extra training pitch for sessions to use. So it's like 3 pitches that you can use. The gym is quite modest, but it's easy because the players that we have there is. Because there has been so much success during the years in the past, the best players wants to join Brommapoikana to get the best education, because they know if they can compete for the starting 11 in that team in Brommapoikana, they're probably one of the best players in the whole of Sweden. So they will reach the national team, and then they will get eyes on them from the scouts outside Scandinavia. And also Brommapoikana is very good at bringing the top coaches for these generations, under 19, under 17, under 15, and everybody's full professional coaches with UEFA Pro diploma, experience in the player development, and so on. The facilities is not like in England, like it's top notch, but I think when you have like 10, 15 best players from one age group competing every day against each other with good coaches, they will develop automatically, of course.
So then you left this academy, right, to go and join the other biggest academy in Sweden. So what happened? What was the end period like in that academy? Did you get told to leave? Did you leave on mutual terms?
No, I think you mixed it up, because I went to Brommapoikana after I was in Djurgården. And Djurgården was my starting point of in my career as a full-time head coach. Because I was a former player of Djurgården in my in my youth days, and I was very talented. So I played between at the age of 15 to 19. I played in Djurgården. So when I stopped playing football, when I was 23 years old, they actually brought me back to be the coach of under 15 team, and they paid for my licenses and badges to become a coach. So I stayed for Djurgården. In Djurgården, I stayed in 8 years. I coached under 17 and under 19, and I had a lot of players also in Djurgården that played for the national team and went professional abroad. But after that, I went to first team football as a head coach in third tier and also in second tier. And after that, I joined the Brommapoikana for 4.5 years. Yeah, 4 years, sorry.
But when you were playing in this academy at the age of 15,
Yeah.
were your friends around you also in academies, or were you the main guy in terms of being this professional footballer or this idol that could go ahead and represent Sweden?
Oh, are you talking about me as a football player, or are you talking
Yes.
about me as a football player?
Yes.
Well, actually, it was so long ago, and you have to know that I'm 45 years old. It's 30 years ago, but of course, I was one of the best players in Djurgården when I played in the years between 15 and 19, and also the under 17 championship. We won it. We were the champions of the Sweden, and that's one of 2 titles Djurgården has as a youth championship players. And when we won the championship 95, I was actually scouted by Crystal Palace, and I went in February 1996 to Crystal Palace to join them and stay until the summer. I couldn't stay longer because I got homesick, but I had the chance to play with them.
So then, Crystal Palace came along, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
How did that come along? Was there scouts? Was there a phone call? And also, what was the decision process like moving to England?
Well, of course, everybody is dreaming about becoming a professional player, because my dream was to play for AC Milan. I really loved Italy, and I really loved AC Milan. Dejan Savic was the best player of AC Milan in the mid-90s and the late 90s, and he was my big idol. But of course, when I got the invitation, it was a letter. It was a fax or a letter that came to the club, like, we want to see Dali as training with us and see if he's good enough for the Crystal Palace Academy. And they paid for the ticket and put me in a house with a woman called Mrs. Hills. That's the only thing I remember. I don't know where in London it was, But the funny thing is, every time I had to go to training, Nigel Martin picked me up and drove me to training, back and forward, and I had no clue who Nigel Martin was until I went out in London and I was visiting like the football shops, and I saw his jersey, like Nigel Martin, and I saw a picture of him. He was the keeper of the England national team. And I was like, Nigel Martin is driving me to the trainings. So that was a funny story. And of course, when you come to Crystal Palace and you're a foreigner at that time, and everybody's competing for the spot and try to, like, you're a foreigner, you want to take our spot. I was not, of course, not so very well welcomed by the other players because it's a competitive environment. So you have to be tough and you have to be mentally strong. And unfortunately, I couldn't handle it no longer, like 3, 4, 5 months, and I decided to go back to Sweden. But the facilities they had in at Crystal Palace were amazing. I know that they have even better now because I've seen the YouTube clips, and after they built the new one. But at that time, in the 95, 96, it was still amazing facilities.
So you only stayed for 5 or 6 months, but
Yeah.
had you stayed for longer and the trial went successfully, what would have been the ideal route? Would it have been to stay in England, or would Palace have offered you a job?
Well, of course, I would love to be a professional football player and play at the highest level possible. And if I stayed, and then if I did better at Crystal Palace, maybe my life would have been different, and who knows what kind of career I would have. But the decision was, it was hard to be away from the family when I was 15 and a half. I was 16 in May, so I never been away from my family. And I'm a Serbian guy. My mother cooks for me, my mother cleans for me, my mother makes my bed, and it was very hard to start living by yourself with this other family that was not your family. And yeah, you can never know what would happen. But I wish I had become a football player at high level, of course, but it didn't happen. So I cannot regret it.
So you decided to come back to Sweden.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was it a fax machine again? Was it a letter saying, "Mum, can you please take me home"?
No, I just went home. I bought the ticket. I talked to the club. I bought the ticket. I went home. I contacted Drew Gordon again, asked them if I was welcome to play with them, and they say, of course, because I still had 1.5 years to play with the under 19. So they brought me back, and I often trained with the first team of Drew Gordon during that period. And I didn't play any official games, but I played like friendly games with the first team. But unfortunately, that year, my last year as an under 19 player, and to take the step up as a first team player, that year, you Gordon got relegated from the first tier to the second tier. So instead of having 25, 26 players, they decided to do an Ajax model, because they got inspired by Ajax to have like 18 plus 2 players and compete in the second tier. So all of the other players that were talented, like me and 4 other guys, we were like loaned out to other clubs, and they told us that they're going to keep an eye on us and follow our progress in those clubs. But as soon as you leave professional level and training 5, 6 times per week and go to a lower club where they train like 2, 3 times per week, all your knowledge and all your standard drops, and you become even more as a football player. And that's where I decided, like, okay, I'm not going to reach top football. Let's start thinking about getting a job, finding an apartment, and maybe coming back as a football coach instead. And that took me like 2, 3, 4 years to change my path in the life.
At the age of 23, you decided to go into the coaching badges system and start to become a manager. But in that period just before, you were playing tier 2 and tier 3. So
Yeah.
reputable leagues in Sweden. They're not the worst. Definitely not where you wanted to have been a few years before, having gone to Palace, etc. What was your mindset like in the tiers 2 and 3? Did you expect to become a pro footballer out of that?
No, absolutely not. When I left Gordon and one season after, when I was loaned out to the other club in third tier, I saw that the environment and the chances to reach top level again is very, very low. So I actually went to Mallorca and became a bartender for one summer just to clear my head from football. I was so fed up and disappointed that I'm not gonna be a pro football player. So I at the age 21 or 22, the 2001 2002, I told my coach at third tier that I'm leaving this club. I'm going to Mallorca to be a bartender, and after that, I stopped playing football.
That must have been difficult. In that, I mean, look, you can't have just gone to Mallorca for that summer and thought, I'm not going to think about football, right? There must have been a football popping into your mind somewhere.
Well, I love football, but I don't want to do anything if I'm not the best at it. So if I'm not the best football player, I will not play football, because in my brain, I know what I can do, but my body cannot follow it. And if I cannot do what I'm thinking that I should be able to do, I will not do it. I will not play football. So becoming a football coach, my target is to be the best coach ever I can be. And my first target was to be a professional football coach. And that's what I mean is earning money by coaching, and don't have to have another job on the side. So I have been professionally coaching since I was 25 years old, and living on my coaching as a coach, as I have it as a job. So what I set my mind to do, I want to be best at it. Otherwise, I don't do it. So the day I see like I cannot live on my football coaching, I cannot be a top coach in Sweden or outside of Sweden, I'm gonna stop coaching. I'm gonna do something else.
Really?
Yeah,
So
100%.
so the people that are listening will understand you a little bit more depth in a short time. We're going to talk about the numerous amounts of trophies that you've won with clubs. That you seem to be the magic man. That everything you touch seems to be a league title or a cup or whatever it may have been.
Yeah,
But you're honestly telling me that football would be left behind if you know that you won't be a manager, a good manager?
yeah, 100%. It's a lot of sacrificing. It's I mean, I've been without my family the last 2 years. My family is living in Stockholm. I have a daughter, she's 8 years old. I have a wife, and I've been abroad 2 years. And this has to lead to something better for the whole family, all this sacrificing. And what I mean is, of course, a better club, a better environment to coach in, a higher level, and of course more money. It's not only to fulfill my dream to live in the football world and then sacrifice my whole life at home with my family. It's not worth it. But so I think I should have a better career as a coach. I think I should have more opportunities to coach better clubs in better leagues. But I also have found out after coaching 22, 3 years, it's all about networking and connections. It's not so much about the hard work and the result, especially not for me. I was naive, and I'm still naive, that I'm thinking the hard work and the result will get me the better clubs. And I still believe it. But in 2, 3 years, if I don't get if I don't get it by hard work and result, I will stop coaching, because I can see other colleagues that are in higher levels without winning, without selling players, without doing the success I have done in different countries, in different clubs, having a better career because of their connections or networking. So I'm a little bit disappointing about that, because I believe, and I've been taught by my parents, like hard work and result will give you what you deserve at the end. But I do this for 2, 3 more years, and after that, I will do something else.
What would be a satisfactory result then? So if the 2 or 3 years comes to an end and you may be at a different kind of club, what club would you have wanted that to be?
Well, for me, it's the most important where the players are professional, where the staff is professional, where you have all these resources to do a good job, where you have the resources to meet in the morning, to talk to your colleagues, to plan the sessions, to plan to scout the trainings, to scout the opponents, to talk player development, to have the trainings, to have time to talk to players after the trainings, individual meetings, collective meetings, to sit with the colleagues after the trainings, and then go home, like an office work, from 8 to 5. And I have the opportunity to play for titles, to play in for full spectators with the stands fully crowded, because I like the nerve, I like the passion. You can see when I'm talking, I'm getting fired up, because I like to compete at high level, and I like the press and stress. So this environment for me in Gibraltar is the wrong environment right now, regarding all of these things I'm talking about. I had a good environment in Faroe Islands. I think it was amazing. I had good environments in Sweden, but here in Gibraltar, I think it's the worst ever for a football coach regarding this professional setup that I'm used to and what I'm looking for. So what the future can bring, I don't know. I hope the hard work, as I told you, and the results I'm doing with all these clubs before, and the results I'm doing currently with Europa Point, like maybe we're going to talk about it, that they have been the last team for all the years they played football, and now we're currently fourth. So I'm doing something right. So hopefully someone will see this and acknowledge this and give me a better chance to work at higher level, because I know what I'm capable of and what I can do. I just need the chance to do it. But if I don't do it, if I don't get it, no more Dalibor Savic in football.
What would you turn your mind to? What would you rather do?
I have no idea. I have been doing football coaching for 23 years and playing for 20. So, I mean, it's all my life. It's all about football, and all my knowledge is about football. But as I told you, it has to be worth it. And now it's like 50-50 if it is.
What would be realistic, though? So let's say you got the email or you got the connections. What would genuinely be a realistic option for you to do next year?
Yeah, in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, it should be realistic. The top tier and the second tier as a coach for me. That's 100% realistic, and I have done it before, and I know I can do it again. Abroad, I have no idea. I'm open for anything and everything, and I just want to have a professional environment to work with your coaching staff that are professional, with players that are, professional as of course.
Well, as I mentioned to you before, I interviewed a player not from Gibraltar. He played in Gibraltar, and he didn't last too long over there either, because he found it to be an unprofessional setup. It was in there during COVID. They were training in one gym. It would just seem. I know it's a small place, but you said that it's the worst place to go for a manager, especially one of your caliber. So let's talk then. You were the youngest coach in Sweden to have a pro license at the age of 33 years old. Was that something quite big for you? Was that quite a big milestone?
Yeah, of course it was. And you see a bright future in front of you. You see, like, I'm 20. Sorry that I'm cursing and swearing. I'm 33 years old, and I'm the highest badge license in Sweden in European football. I had made the result with the youth teams, winning cups and leagues, and we have sold so many players abroad from Brommon Poikana. Of course, I was on fire, and I was expecting to have a better career and better connections. But I don't want to talk about racism, but it makes you wonder. Like, I'm in Sweden, but I'm from Serbia. Maybe that's one factor. I don't want to play that card. I don't believe it. I don't trust it. But it makes you wonder why I haven't had better clubs and better options. Or maybe they think I'm enough. But if they just tell me that, I have no problem telling me if somebody tells me that you're not good enough. It's okay. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses, but I also see the other colleagues that went with the courses with me, what kind of clubs they're coaching now and how they got their chances to coach. But of course, 33 years old, I was expecting me to be the head coach of AC Milan, of course.
So what was it? Did you go back to Djurgården then? It was the 4 years that you spent with the under-17s and then the 4 years with under-19s?
Yeah, exactly.
So, go on.
Yeah, so I was there 8 years, and I took my pro license during that time. And of course, after spending so many years in the youth football, you have this itch. You want to try in the first team football. You have the desire to prove yourself in first team football. So the manager that came to you, Gordon, in the first team, his name was Magnus Persson, and he wanted to have a collaboration with another third tier club to put the players from the first team that was not good enough for you, Gordon, to play in that team to make the progress and development. So you, Gordon, put me as a coach in that club to control these players and give them a good environment and blah, 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 the development, and have the communication with Magnus Persson, who was the head coach in Djurgården. But unfortunately, Magnus Persson got sacked after 6 months. So this project went like, they took it away. So I stayed as a coach in this first team because I didn't want to go back to the youth football in Djurgården, and they didn't want to give me the head coach job in Djurgården. So I stayed in the first team football in this club, Arameiska Syrianska, and I did it quite well. So they have a sister club in the second tier that is called Syrianska. So they got me the job. First, I got the job as the head coach, but after 2 weeks, they brought in another head coach. So we had two head coaches, but he was more experienced. So they gave me the title assistant coach because I was not experienced enough. But for me, it was good to be in the second tier, and that was full-time professional football. Also, it was good quality football in those years in the second tier of Sweden. We actually had a player, maybe you know about him, Saman Ghoddos.
Yes, I know. On Football Manager.
Yeah, exactly. He was my player in Syrianska, and he was really, really good. So after 2 years, 1.5 year in Syrianska, I wanted to be the head coach of Syrianska because I was promised to be the head coach before this other guy came in, and they made me the assistant coach. And they said, no, we want to keep him as a head coach, but you can continue as an assistant coach if you want. And I said, no. So this is when Bromma Poikana came into the picture and gave me the head coaching of under 21 and under 19. And of course, you want to go to Bromma Poikana because all of these good players that are coming out from this academy, all these national team players. And I was like very honored and proud to be coaching Bromma Poikana.
So you work with the likes of Kulusevski, Gyökeres, all these amazing players that now represent Sweden. And actually, we can touch upon the Swedish national team just very quickly. I don't believe they're qualified for the Euros. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
With these sorts of players, I mean, what goes through your head as a manager that just thinks, oh my word, you've got all these good players and we can't even qualify for the Euros?
I think it's quite easy. I think the coach that they had, he's a good coach, but he's not a modern coach that these modern players need. So he's let's say an old school coach, because he came through in Swedish football in the 80s and the 90s, and he was very successful, and it was all about the tactics, playing 4-4-2, keeping the lines, keeping it compact, just play the system. There was no rotations or making overloads or try to see the individual skills of the players that are coming up, the youth players, the modern players that have been coached and educated with ball handling and 1 versus 1 and beating your players. So he was the wrong coach for this young generation of new players that wanted to play another style of football. So it was a mismatch. But before these young players come, the new players, and he worked with the older players like Emil Forsberg and Zlatan and all of those, Marcus Albeck, Henrik Larsson. He was a good coach for those players. But for this generation, he's not the right match.
Do you see him leaving and maybe getting a new coach for Sweden?
Yeah, they actually appointed a new coach. So he left in November, and they just brought Jon Dahl Tomasson, who was in Blackburn. So he's the Swedish national team coach now.
Do you expect them to be qualifying for the next World Cup, next Euros?
Of course, they're gonna do. I think Jon Dahl Tomasson has been in Swedish football. He was in Malmö, the champion of Sweden. He won the title, I think, 2 years in a row, or maybe 3 years in a row. So he know all about these young players and the modern style of football the Sweden wants to play. So I think he's a good match, and I think he has the winning mentality as a former player. And this is what we need to do to be successful. I think they will qualify for the Euros and for the World Cup for sure.
I don't think I've ever spoken to a manager that's worked with more players that play for national teams or more high club profile players. We mentioned Gokares, Kulusevski, all these great players, Burnley players. What do all these players have in common? Do they all have something in common that makes them professional footballers?
Yes, this is the guys that not sitting on the video games. They are not sitting on the telephones. These guys are playing football from the morning to the evening. These guys are doing extra training sessions in the gym. These guys, all of them had like personal trainings. If we had like 4 times per week training with the team, they had 2 extra sessions with either a physical coach or a technical coach or a gym coach. They were very determined to become a professional football. The mindset was, I'm going to be a professional football player. We had all of these guys in the same training group. So the trainings were very competitive. It was a very high standard of training. And of course, all the time they put into themselves to become a football player. It's all because of all the time they invested in themselves, and they deserve it. I mean, Gyökeres, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Go ahead.
Gyökeres was not the most skilled one as a football player, but he was very, very focused and determined to become a professional player. Kulusevski had all of this technique and ball handling and skills and 1-versus-1, but he was also determined to do that extra, like the physical in the gym and running and sprinting. So they're very focused, all of these players that have reached top level football.
It's weird because I actually saw Dejan Kulusevski in London. I didn't actually say hello to him. Saw him walking by. He seems very tall when he's up against you. When you were in Sweden, right, and you saw these players training day and night, working really, really hard, probably lack of sleep as well because they're constantly playing football. Yeah. And then we compare it to England, like we spoke about at the start, and we said that a lot of people try and become pro, and a lot of people do what Dejan did and try and work, play football all the time, no video games. But it doesn't work out. And those players never actually make it to even a professional level, maybe not even semi-pro for some of them, but I'm sure a lot of them would do. Waste of money? Would you say it's a waste of money chasing that sort of career when it didn't work out for a lot of people?
Well, we have to be honest. It's very few people that are becoming a professional football player. But if you don't invest and if you don't try, you will never know. You also have to be a little bit lucky. You have to come to a club where the coach sees your quality and can work with your quality, and you have to have the chemistry and the connection with the coach that he wants to help you. And you as a player, you have to want to listen to the coaching advice, and you have to listen to improve, because we have the knowledge. We are older, but when you're a young guy, you think you already have the answers and you have all the knowledge that you need, but you have to listen to these professional coaches that has been doing this for many years and work with these players, and they know how to get the best out of you. So a bit of luck, a good mindset and determination, and a lot of sacrificing. I mean, I have sacrificed friends, family, you name it, parties, birthdays, weddings, and all of this, Friday nights and Saturday nights, to reach the level I have reached. And if you ask Gyökeres and Kulusevski, they will probably say the same. Friday night with the friends, it doesn't exist. It's all about training tomorrow and game tomorrow. So you have to try if you really love football and you have the talent. You have to be a bit lucky, and you have to try, of course. Don't give up your dream.
Well, of course. Well, that's what a lot of people say. But a lot of people say, don't give up on your dream. I really like to be a professional footballer, but I'm going to go out on a Friday night, see my friends, have cake, and all this stuff. So no wonder why they don't make it to that professional level. But now for you, this is the rocket to what got you out to space. So you then left again. I can't pronounce it, but then after 4 years, you left as the head coach and went to a third tier team called
Yeah,
Vasalunds IF, and that's where it started to hit good for you. Tell me what
yeah.
happened there.
So I was in the first team of Brommapojkarna as assistant coach. That was we played in Allsvenskan, the first tier, and the head coach there told me if we stay in this league and we get the renew of the contract, I can afford 2 assistant coach, and you are gonna be one of the 2 assistant coach if we stay in the league. If we get relegated, I'm gonna only have 1 assistant coach because of the budget and the money, and I'm gonna choose another guy that I worked with before in another club. And I said, okay, I totally understand it. So we got relegated and I was without a job. So Vasalund contacted me and offered me to be the head coach of the first team in the third tier. And they have always wanted to go up to the second tier, and they have always bringing good players to that club, but they haven't been in the second tier since 2009. So it was like many years trying to find the right setup, trying to find the right coach to bring them up to the second tier. So the first year, I don't know how we finished. I don't know if we finished 4th, 5th, or 6th, but we scored a lot of goals. I think we scored over 70 goals in 30 games, 76 goals, I think it was. And the second year, we were by media. How do you say? They were ranking the teams in the league. Like first team should be Brommapojkarna bouncing back to the second tier, and we were ranked as number 6 in that league. So the second year we won the league with 4 games left. We have the goal scoring record ever in the history.
88 goals.
88 goals. And from that team, we sold 1 player to Norway, Viking Stavanger. His name is Mai Traoré. We sold 1 player to AIK, first year in Allsvenskan in Sweden. He's a national team player for Kenya, Erik Otieno. We sold Isak Hien, who is a center defender. We sold him to Djurgården. And after 1 year in Djurgården, he was sold to Hellas Verona in Serie A. And now he plays in Atalanta. He also plays in the national team of Sweden. But we also sold that year Benjamin Tahirovic. He was 17 years old, or maybe 18, to Roma, to Jose Mourinho. So we had player development. We won the league. We were the most offensive team. And after that year, I had a lot of options to go to better clubs in Sweden. But I decided to stay with Vasalund and continue. But unfortunately, after the summer, I got sacked because of the results. Yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a short amount of time. But you mentioned selling these players. How does that even come about? So we can go back to Football Manager, and we're going to talk. We can say that you get an email, and you can, Real Madrid have offered 150 million for Jude Bellingham, and all this kind of stuff. Real life, is that how it goes, or is it completely different?
Well, I think it's a lot of agents involved. So it's, of course, an agency has a player. He talks to the sports director, and they say like, "Oh, Benjamin Tahirovic is doing really good. He's playing minutes in a team that's winning the league. He's 18. Do you want us to try to find him a professional club?" And the sports director says, "Yeah, let's see. Let's try. What connections do you have?" And this agent has had connections in Italy. And he probably sent it to, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clubs. And I think Roma was very interested in the profile that Benjamin had and the style he played, because nowadays you have Y-Scout and Instat, so you can watch all the games in online, and you can download it and you can see the statistics. And after a couple of weeks, they sent it they sent it a scout up, and they watched him like 2-3 times, and after that they bought him. So I think it's a lot with the sports directors and the agents, the communication. Okay, this player is looking good. What should we do? For instance, with Isak Hien, who went from Vasalund and then to Djurgården, I had the relationship with Djurgården before, so I just phoned up them and told, I have a center back here that is the best one in the league. Please check him out. He's 20 years old. And they were like, yeah, but the league is maybe not so good, and he played as a striker before. Yes, he played as a striker, but I converted him to play as a center back. You should look at him. And they looked at him, and after that game, they saw him. They were coming like every game, and then they decided to bring him to Djurgården. So sometimes is it the coach that phones up a club because you have the relationship, but mostly it's the agents contacting the directors.
So you had a bad run of results, and then you decided to leave the club, or you got sacked, and then you joined Dalkurd, who are newcomers in the second tier.
Yeah.
What happened there? Smile on your face. Tell us the story.
That was my biggest mistake. You should know Dalkurd is a club with it's foreigners, it's Kurdish people. They're very proud of the club. The club is even bigger outside of Sweden than inside of Sweden. So all the games are televised by satellite in Iraq and Iran and Turkey and so on. So it's a big honor to be the head coach of that club, because it's like you are the national team coach. Everybody knows about you. Arabic media is talking about you. They are interviewing you. They're calling you and so on. But the vision they told me and the plan that they had was to go up to the first tier by investors from Iraq that had a lot of money. They're gonna bring good players. They're gonna pay a lot. We have a fan base in Sweden. We're gonna have like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 in the stands. And actually, a couple of years before, they had all of this. They had the money. They had the fans. They had good players. So my vision was, this is going to happen again. But when I came to the club, the money was stopped. The players didn't want to come. The money from Iraq, the Swedish bank didn't accept money from that country. So the wages were not paid. The players starting to go on strike. And of course, when you go on strike and you don't train and you're unhappy and not satisfied, you lose games. So I was tired of losing. We played 6 games. We won 1 and lost 5. And when we lost the 5th one, I think we lost 4-0 or 4-1 away. And we got 2 red cards, and we scored 2 own goals in that game. I told my director, this is not a healthy place to be at. Either you need to change all of these players that are unhappy in the summer, because this is going to continue, or you have to sack me, because I cannot help this player win the games. They're not believing in me. They're not believing in the club. They're not happy. It took 2 days, and then they sacked me. So I was without the club for 5 days, and then I got the call from Faroe Islands in HB Tórshavn. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you couldn't turn things around in the changing rooms. What actually happened when you left? Were the players still staying there a few years down the line? I mean, I know it was only a few years ago.
Yeah, a couple of them, of course, they broke. Do you say you broke the contract, or they tear the contract?
Terminated.
Yeah, in the summer window. So a couple of them left. They brought in a new manager, but they still got relegated. They still didn't get any points, and they still didn't get any wages and money. So the problem continued, and actually they continued this year also in the 3rd tier. So they got relegated to the 2nd tier, and now it's a question: is this club going to survive or not? So it didn't go for the better, it just got for the
Worse.
worse. But instead of signing for Dalkurd, I should have signed for another club that I didn't. But they were 2 days too late to sign me. And when I put my name to the paper, when I put the pen to the paper, I don't break the contract just to go to another club, because I'm born and raised like, if I give you my word, I keep you my word till the end. So I should have broke that contract and go to this better club, because they're in a good healthy spot right now.
Often a lot of people ask me, what's it like for a manager to get sacked? I mean, it's not the nicest of topics to go through. Was there a team meeting called? I mean, I know you weren't happy at this club, so it would have been maybe a bit of a relief to know that you were now going to be leaving, but now you would have had no job. But we'll talk about that after. To be sacked, what's that like? How does that even happen?
It's tough. It's hard. You doubt yourself. I even doubt myself when I lose one game. So when you lose your job, you doubt yourself even more. But this is how the game is played. You get jobs, you lose jobs, you win games, you lose games. You just have to cope with it. You have just to handle it. But the hardest thing is when you're a manager at the club, your phone is ringing all the time. Players are ringing. The director is ringing. The scouts are ringing. The agents are ringing. But the day you get sacked, the telephone is dead. It's like you don't exist. And that's the hardest thing. You feel lonely. You feel like forgotten. But this is where it's important, where you have your family that are like bringing you up and comfort you and gives you the trust, and also to have close friends to take you out for a coffee or for a beer or whatever. But it's not nice to be sacked, and I often doubt myself, if will I offer my debt.
So you lost the job on the 11th of May, and only a
Yeah.
matter of days later, 5 days later, on the 16th of May,
Yes.
the biggest club in the Faroe Islands called you up.
Yeah.
Tell us the story about that.
Yeah. They contacted me in the winter before I signed for Dalkurd. But as I told you, they were a little bit late, because I already signed the contract with Dalkurd, and I didn't want to break that deal that I had with them to go to Hobart Torshavn. But of course, I know about Hobart Torshavn. They always play the Conference League, or what's the other, Europa League and Champions League. So they're always in the qualification, and you always see them, like when you watch a flash score, you can see Hobart Torshavn. I know that they're the biggest club with the most titles. I know that they had a lot of national team players over there. So when they called me, it was through an agent. An agent called me and asked, this club is looking for a coach. Are you interested? I said, I'm interested to have a talk with them, but I already signed with another club. So he said, like, just talk to them. You never know in the future. So I had a talk with them, and after the talk, like we did like this on Skype, they offered me a contract right away, and I said, I'm sorry, I already signed with another club, but in the future, if you need a coach and you still want me, I would be open to come to you. So when I lost my job, they actually followed my results. And when they saw it in the newspaper that I lost my job in Dalkurd, they phoned me up the second day on the 12th. Oh, we see that you're free now. Would you like to come up and visit us? I said, yes, I can come on Friday, and let's see. So I went up on Friday. I watched the game, and in the evening we were sitting in the sports director garage. He has like a man cave, and the whole board was there, and they were smoking cigars and drinking whiskey, and they were negotiating with me like, this is the contract, and this is how we want to do it, and can you tell me about you or your philosophy? And we sat until the morning, 4:00 in the morning, and we signed the contract, and I had the first training on the Saturday morning, 10:00, 6 hours later. So it was like quick things.
So talk to me then about this triumph, because you stayed there for a year and a half and you won the cup title. So hang on a sec. So you mentioned about healthy environments, and we're going to jump ahead a little bit here. For you, where you are now, Europa Point FC, it's not the environment for you. You're unhappy currently at where you are. But to go at this club, to one of the biggest clubs in the Faroe Islands, What was the environment like there? Would you see a professional setup day in, day out?
Yeah. It was really, really professional. The only bad thing with Faroe Islands is it's constant rain and constant wind. It's in the middle of the Atlantic. It's located between Iceland and Scotland, and it's so windy and rainy. But the clubhouse with the people who is working inside the club, the whole town that is red and black, like cheering for the club. They're very proud of the history. They're close to the club. They always, every morning they have like, it's called Hobe coffee. Like all the old men and women come there and drink coffee, eat breakfast. So you always meet the fans and the people. They have a big gym with all the necessary things you need. They have a good locker room. They have the stadium that they train and play at. They have the national team stadium where we can train and play at, and they have a third pitch for if it's overbooked, you can use the third pitch. So, and you can use it how much you want and when you want. So you don't have to do like we do here in Gibraltar. We need to train like 9 o'clock in the evening because the players are working, or there's no allocations ready for us to train at. So I can choose the training setup, and the players were professional, so we can train 2 times per day, or I can call them in for a video session. The staff were full time. We had breakfast, we had lunch, we had all this package you need to make the development for the players and the result that we needed.
So how did that come to an end? A year and a half. How did that end?
Yeah. So if you go to Transfermarkt, and you can actually look for former coaches of Hobe. So if you type in like former coaches of Hobe, you can see that they are very hot on firing people. So before I came to Hobe, it was actually 5 coaches before me, and they stayed for 35 days, 55 days, 2 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 10 days. So the patience there are very, very low. So what I wanted to do is, because I got sacked in Sweden, I didn't want to get sacked in the Faroe Islands as well. Then everybody's going to talk, this coach is getting sacked in Sweden, he's getting sacked in Faroe Islands, he's not good enough. So when I won the title, I wanted to leave like on the top, like I have won it, I cannot do it better. And also I left in May. No, I left in the 26th of April, in the late dates of April, beginning of the May, to tell the Swedish media that I'm available for the Swedish window. If some club is going to change the coach, I'm available. And I didn't get sacked. I won a title. So that was my plan. Unfortunately, that year in Sweden, actually only AIK changed the club, and that's a club too big for me, I'm honest. And Göteborg changed the coach. I was in the process, but they chose another coach. And a second tier club changed the coach, Eskilstuna, but I declined that job. I didn't want that job. So I was without a coaching job. And then Europa Point contacted me, and that's why I ended up here.
You do 2 jobs. So if you were at the Liverpool club, for example, or you were at a higher club, you wouldn't be doing these 2 jobs. You'd be the head coach and you wouldn't be the technical director. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So tell me then, what is the role of a technical director for people that might not know?
Well, my role here as a technical director, I don't know how it is in other clubs, but my role here is to build an identity and the DNA of the football, how we want to play football, how we want to train football, what kind of player profiles do we want to have in this club, how can we develop men in our environment so they can play in better clubs, in better league. So this is my role as a technical director, to print down and set up this whole idea.
So this club that you're at, Europa Point FC, with Gibraltar, right? There's we mentioned before 11 teams, and there is a bit of room for competition, but a lot of the time the same clubs seem to do the same things. This club never had more than 8 points, always finished bottom.
Yeah.
But there is sort of a clear pathway. If you finish first or second or in the top few, you'd be able to qualify for Europe. So was that your goal coming into Europa Point, despite them only ever finishing with 8 points?
Well, first of all, my target and goal was, let's show everybody that I can work with a bottom team and make them better. So the last 13 games, we have conceded 4 goals. So if you look at Lincoln, that is number 1 in the league, and St. Joseph, that are number 2 in the league, and then Bruno's Magpies, that are 3rd in the league, we have conceded equally much goals as those top teams, but we don't score as equally much goals as they are doing. So my target was to bring this club from a bottom team, this losing mentality, the team that nobody wants to play for, that everybody is laughing at, that there's unprofessional coaches, unprofessional environment, to bring them into top 6 and to tell them that I'm a good coach, I know what I'm doing, so we can recruit better players, and to sell them an idea that we can win games against all the opponents in Gibraltar. But if we lose, we don't lose with 5-6-7-0, like you can see Mons Calpe or Manchester losing against Lincoln with 7-0, but we lose only with 1-0. So this tells us about that, the tactical knowledge and the training concept that we have, that we are doing a good job and reaching these how do you say, objectives and results.
But how do you change these results? Because it's easier said than done, right? So how would you go in? So you come into Europa Point, you say to the boys, right, we want to try and get to more than 8 points, ideally.
Yeah.
We got to change our mindset. Is that what you got to say to them?
Yeah. First of all, it took me some time to know about the players we have, and to know the league, the quality of the league. And so the first 4 games we lost them. I was a bit naive to play a 4-3-3 with 2 10s. With 2 10s, and have an approach where we will try to win the ball high and try to control the ball by having it under possession and play by space. So I was a bit naive, and I learned the hard way by losing the first 4 games. So I had to change it to 5-3-2 to have more players behind the ball, to crowd our box and to defend our box so they don't score goals, and then to work on transitions. But this club and these players that I had, they only trained 2 times per week and then played the games on Saturday. So I had to bring in to raise the bar in training. Like, we need to train more, we need to train better, we need to train harder. So I raised it from 2 times per week to 5 times per week. Of course, you have to know the balance in the periodization, so nobody gets injured by training more. But that's something you learn after 25 years of coaching. You know how to do the periodization of the training week. So training more, building up the physical capacity with more runnings and physical conditioning with ball, without ball, all of these things, and playing a little bit more compact and have a better strategy on transitions and set pieces is what I've changed so far.
For me, I never understand managers that would come into a club like Europa Point and they probably would have gone, let's play defensive, let's draw 0-0, let's play boring football. Your ideologies is to go 4-3-3, 4-4-2, 3-5-2, high pressure, offensive, confidence, all this stuff. Is that what you describe yourself as a manager, despite whatever club you're at, where they are in the league? You want them to be attacking, you want them to score the goals?
Yeah, that's my philosophy. So if you see like Bromma Pojkarna Youth, if you see Arameiska Syrianska, if you see Vasalund, if you see HB Torshavn, I have scored a lot of goals. I am an offensive coach by scoring a lot of goals. And it doesn't always come from having the ball. It usually comes from the high pressure, winning the ball high, by being in a good physical shape, by working with pressing traps where you want to win the ball and how to attack when you want the ball from that space to make an offensive transition. So that's one idea, to have the high pressure to score the easy goals. And that's something that is in my game model and in my game idea. But also when we have the ball, I want to control the ball, to control the game. So it has to be methods on how we want to attack. It can be like, let's have an established attack on the right side to lure them, and then make a switch to create a 2-against-1. So it has to be like overloads and controlling the balls. But the most important thing when you face teams like the teams I'm coaching now, like many people in the box, in defensive box, you need to know what to do in offensive box. So many clubs are just like putting the ball to the side, crossing it, and who's the strongest one, he wins it. But I have work methods in the box. Who is attacking the first space? Who is coming on the cutback? I also have somebody who's doing the basketball screen just to create space. Do you understand? You need to have methods in all the parts of the game. And when I watch football, I'm not talking about Premier League, but I talk about Swedish top football. I can see like the ball goes out to the left. He just crosses this, but nobody's working in the box. It's only who's the strongest. If I'm stronger than you, I score. If you're stronger than me, you take the ball away. So I have methods for attacking in the offensive box that I think I'm unique in Swedish football when I watch the other coaches. But to answer your question, this is how I describe myself. But I would also like to add, Jamie, that you have to adapt depending in what club you are and what players do you have under your wings. So Europa point, I cannot play high pressure. I cannot play controlled football because mostly the biggest game changer in Gibraltar are the local players. And the best local players are playing in Lincoln, Brunos, and San Joseph. So the local players we have, they're not good enough to play the kind of football I want to play. So I have to play a different kind of football. And that's a lot about transitions and being compact. So as a coach, you need to know what kind of players do you have, what kind of opposition you're playing against, and how can you bring out the strengths to get the results from every team that you're coaching. So I was naive when I came to Gibraltar. I'm thinking to play, this is the way I can do it here. But after 4 games, I just saw it. I cannot do it. So I could have done it more, but losing 18 games instead of winning 10 games if I didn't change it.
Just really quickly, sorry, talk to me about Gibraltar and if you could qualify for a European competition for next season. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. Team 1, 2, and 3 will go to Europe. So we are currently in the 4th place. Brunos are in the 3rd place. I think there are, let me check how many points there are in front of us. Yeah, tell me.
The question would be, would you carry on if you got them into a European competition?
No.
Really? You'd give it to someone else and say, take charge?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know when you're going to send this podcast, but honestly, I think that we have reached the ceiling and the roof this year. I think next year is going to be even tougher and harder to reach and achieve these results. But also, I'm not gonna stay, no matter what. I already made up my mind to leave this club, but I don't know when you're gonna send this. So I hope they don't hear it before
No.
before I have told them.
Well, yes. I mean, look. So next season would be you'd like to go back into management straight away, right? There'd be no doubt in you want to have a year off like Klopp. You'd want to go back into it, into the thick of it. Would Sweden be the ideal place for you because it's your home, because your wife and your daughter are there, or would you really consider an option in a higher caliber league?
Yeah, I would consider everything. I'm a workaholic. I love to work, but I need to be satisfied with the surroundings and the environment to be able to do the best I can to get the result and development from the players and the club. So, of course, Sweden is an option. Abroad is an option. I'm not afraid to live wherever in the world. This is the part of the job. I just need a proper environment so I can do the best job possibly.
Dali, it's been over an hour, and we've had a great conversation talking about your
Sorry.
whole career, not Newcastle, sorry, Crystal Palace, all these amazing clubs. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you and the club all the best for the future.
Jamie, thank you for having me, and hopefully your listeners and viewers would appreciate the talk that we had. Thank you all.